Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we are going to talk about pointless anger.
Oh, you mean the kind you have all the time at me?
My anger always has a point. So this episode, kind of a funny story to share. This episode was kind of inspired by, I think that's a good word, inspired by incident we had on an airplane recently. And, you know, there's been all kinds of like conflict and different things going on over the last, year or so with all the COVID mask mandates and people who think you should wear a mask, people who don't want to have to wear a mask, and just all the different opinions. And I know that on flights in particular, it's been, a huge point of conflict.
People are testy.
They are. So this actually happened a few months ago when Thomas and I were traveling to Idaho, up to where, my kids live, and we were going to see all the grandbabies and stuff. And we got on the plane, and it was a plane that had two aisles, one on each side, two rows, I should say, or
two rows of seat and one center aisle.
And a center aisle. Thank you very much for that. And there were two seats on each aisle. So 2 seats on the right side, 2 seats on the left side with a center aisle. So Thomas and I get on the plane, and I climbed into my seat, and I usually sit next to the window. And he had the big, heavy backpack on.
And the dog.
I had the dog, yeah. She travels with us a lot of times. And Thomas had the big, heavy backpack on that had all our computers and our all our work stuff that we need to travel with. And there was a lady sitting on the aisle of the right-hand side. So Thomas and I were sitting to the left, and there was a lady on the end on the aisle. And when Thomas turned to put the backpack up in the shelf, he accidentally hit her, I think, with the strap.
The strap struck her in the face.
The strap struck her in the face. So he didn't conquer with the big, computer or anything like that.
Right.
He just the strap kind of smacked.
And then I started kicking her.
No, you didn't. No. And when he realized it, he stopped and he turned around and he said, "Did I just hit you with that?" And she said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I beg your pardon." Now, that was his exact words. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I beg your pardon." And he puts the backpack on up into the shelf and sits down. And so then, and it's been a while, so I don't know if I'll get the exact sequence of events correctly.
Right,
but,
so she's sitting there fuming.
Right, so she's angry. This person is angry already over the thing.
And I'm sitting there watching my surf contest on my phone.
Yeah, and she's glaring. She's glaring at both of us. She's just giving us the evil eye and just glaring. And then Thomas had his guitar with us. And so,
wait, no, something else happened first. I looked over, kind of, and she said something like, "Yeah, I'm looking at you."
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you.
And it's almost, she had so much anger that it was almost funny. You couldn't, it was all we could do to keep from laughing because it was so, her level of anger was just so out of proportion to what had happened, and the fact that it was an accident. So anyway, she tells Thomas, "Oh yeah, I'm looking at you." So then the a flight attendant comes on the overhead and says, "Hey, we have a guitar out here. We're not sure who it belongs to. If you, brought a guitar on with you, please ring your overhead thing." So we rang the overhead button because we had a guitar with us, and I think the tag had gotten torn off somehow or whatever. So the guy comes walking back and he says, "Oh, is it a black case, soft case, whatever?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he walks away, and then Thomas looked at me and he goes, "Well, it's not a soft case. It's it's not a gig bag. It's a formed case." And so we were having this discussion about, did the guy saying soft case mean it's not, knock on it hard like vinyl or whatever, or did he mean a gig bag, or did he mean and Thomas is like, "What if it's not my guitar?" And so I said, well, why don't you just go on up there? Just go on up there, and that way you can see it sitting there in the entryway or whatever. And he gets up and he starts walking up there, and she hollers and says, yeah, go on up there so you can hit somebody else. And I was just like, I didn't even know how to react to this person in a lot of ways, you know. So Thomas is walking on up there. I don't even know at this point if he had heard her or not. I didn't know, which he had, I think. But so he goes up to the front and he's having this discussion. And I turned and I looked at her and I said, it was an accident. And he already apologized and told you that he was sorry. And she kind of crossed her arms and she goes, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like that, as if Thomas's apology was just totally absurd and, you know, couldn't be sincere. Right. And then, of course, Thomas comes back to his seat and she continues to glare at us through the whole flight. And, you know, the whole flight is just kind of uncomfortable. And Thomas and I are trying to, you know, ignore it and be the bigger person and do all the things that we always tell you guys to do. You need to do in your divorce. You know, we're doing the same thing. So toward the end of the flight, our little dog, she does a little thing where she is irritated in her crate and she like, and she kind of chases her tail around. And she made this little noise and the lady goes, that sounds like a dog. And I looked at her and I said, oh, yeah, that's our dog. She's at my feet. So when I had gotten into my seat, you know, the dog was in a crate and I guess she just didn't realize that it was an animal. So she looks over at the guy sitting next to her who was just another traveler. It wasn't anybody she was with. And she goes, oh, it's the guy who hit me's dog.
Yep. The guy who battered me, beat me mercilessly.
So our poor little Kayla is now the dog of the guy who hit her.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was just so angry through the whole thing. And it, like I said, it was to the point where it's almost comical.
It was. And we, in fact, we're telling the story now because it's
funny.
funny.
And I was trying to keep, you know, and I mean, Thomas is very much a smart aleck, if you guys haven't figured that out from watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, I mean. But so he constantly wanted to make jokes. So he kept like leaning over to me and making jokes that would cause me to laugh. And I'm trying not to laugh because this lady's so upset and I don't want her to think we're laughing at her.
Because angry people don't like it when the people they're angry with laugh.
Are having a good time, yeah. And so I'm trying to hold it in and he keeps making jokes and I'm going, stop it. You can do this when we're off the plane. Shut up. You need to be quiet. You can tell the jokes when we're away from her. Like, yeah. And she was so angry the whole time. And when we got off the plane, we started talking about this and we started talking about, you know, relaying this in a podcast because her anger was so, first of all, just unwarranted in my opinion, because it was a total accident. And it was almost like she was, when I said to her it was an accident and she was like, oh yeah, right. It was almost like, what? So my husband got on the plane and thought, oh, look at this lady sitting here. I really don't like her. I think I'll move the backpack in a way that causes the strap to slap her in the face.
Right.
Like to even think that there was any intention on your part when we don't know this person, we've never seen this person, we don't know anything about this person. What motivation would we possibly have?
Right. Well, some people just think the whole world kind of revolves around them.
Right.
And so they're looking to take offense. You know, sometimes I think my son sees the world that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that guy over there is
out to get
out to get me.
Right.
What? He's just sitting there
in the sunshine, enjoying his day.
Well, he looked at me. He looked at me kind of like, you're just. And yeah. I knew he was thinking about me, and I knew he was going through his backpack, and he probably had a knife in there.
Now we've got Dalton laughing in the background. So I think knowing the kid that we're talking about helps. But
he's a good boy. He is.
Yeah,
but
he is. But he definitely, I mean, you said it when he was very young. This you know, they talk about rose-colored glasses. Well, Thomas said this kid sees the world through poop-colored glasses. Like he's getting better as he gets older, but when he was young, it was really hard.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what this lady, it's like the anger was so pointless and she was so upset. And it's like, I mean, I understand initially like being upset and you got whacked in the face and it's kind of like, you know, it probably hurt and oh my goodness. And, you know, but once the other person apologizes or whatever, I probably would have been trying to like, you know, make small talk with that person or make some kind of connection to where they knew it was okay and I wasn't upset or, you know, whatever. And it's like all she wanted to do was, I mean, she sat there with her arms crossed glaring at us for at least half the trip, at least.
Right. And who's hurt by that, really?
Well,
it's not Mr. Joke Guy.
I was saying, apparently not us because we're getting a lot of laugh out of it. And we got a lot of laugh out of it at the time that it happened, too. You know?
It's like, I mean, my reaction is look at that person completely miserable about somebody she doesn't even know because she's so mad.
I know. And the way that this relates is that, you know, her anger is destroying her. She didn't hurt me or Thomas by being, I mean, she was a little annoying, I guess, which is what she was trying to do. But she didn't really hurt me or Thomas.
But the story was worth it.
You do it again?
Yeah, having the story to tell is worth it.
Yeah. For us, but, you know, she didn't, excuse me, I'm sorry. Her anger was so like palpable. You say to yourself, you know, this person can't be this upset over this thing. There had to be, you know, she has to be angry over many other things in her life to have this level over something so
Maybe
small.
she was on her way to a funeral.
I don't know. I'm sure we would have known if.
Right.
Because she talked really loud the whole flight about she was going to visit family.
Drama queen.
And, she was going to visit her children or whatever she was doing. But I think she talked really loud for our benefit. But as if I cared what she was going to do. But anyway, so you know, when you're angry, when we say pointless anger, like this kind of comes into play with divorce, is what it made us think of is. When we were dealing with this woman on the plane, I mean, I think one of the reasons that Thomas and I could sort of, you know, find humor in it and not get, you know, terribly offended or whatever, is because that's kind of what we do all day, right? We're dealing with people who are very angry and are often in a very negative place, and they're often venting that anger onto us, although it's not personal. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about Thomas. It's about what that person's going through, and you're the person that's, you know, within the range right now of their crosshairs, and so you're the one that's getting the hit.
You just happen to be walking in their field of fire.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we deal with that a lot, but it's really sad because what happens is that person is the person that's suffering, not us. And on the plane, that woman was the person that was suffering, not me or Thomas.
Right. Yeah.
And that's very normal in the very beginning. I mean, I went through that too. I was very angry in the beginning. You were too. Like we've all been through that. And so that's kind of a normal part of the divorce process. And so when we first talk to somebody and they're that way, we totally expect that and understand and try to have sympathy around it. But what I always say is you don't want to live there.
Yeah. Yeah. You really don't. Anger is, you know, the Bible says a fool gives full vent to his anger.
Right.
I forgot the second half of the proverb, but it's there somewhere. It's in the Bible. And the idea is, you know, number one, when you're angry, you tend to get anger back. It's like an equal and opposite. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
So I think that's Newton's second law of thermodynamics or something like that.
Wow,
I don't know. That's right. In high school, I took physics in high school, but it's true though. You know, when you lash out at somebody, they tend to lash out back.
Right.
So if you're having an argument with somebody, what usually happens when people argue, couples argue, I'll say something that hurts your feelings. So you'll go, oh, yeah. And so you'll say something that hurts my feelings.
Well, my goal is to say something that hurts your feelings even more than you hurt my feelings.
Right. Right. Because getting even is like kissing your sister. That's one of the things R.C. Sproul says. Getting even is like kissing. You don't want to get even. You want to get one up.
Right.
And that's how conflict spirals out of control.
Right.
Because each person is willing to do more.
Right.
Did I already mention the Ukraine war in this case? I mean, what's happening there is a series of escalations.
Right.
And people escalate. They don't just get even.
Right. And I think that very much was true for me in my last marriage.
Yeah.
Like you've said this, you've made mention that my ex-husband will go for the jugular. And that's true. He's just always trying to one up in any argument. And so it's very, very difficult because it completely destroys everything.
Right. And that's a bad, for those of you who are in relationships,
that's a bad strategy.
That's not a good strategy. It's better to de-escalate.
Right.
It's better
to be the calm one.
Yeah.
And wait for the other person to calm down.
You know what I find sometimes works is a well-placed joke. So, a lot of times when Tammy and I are arguing, which happens once every decade or so, a lot of times, being able to see the humor in the situation,
right,
it can take a lot of the pressure off.
Right.
So it's kind of like, wow, you look so beautiful when you're angry, that kind of comment. It takes a little bit of the venom out.
Right.
That helps you. But we have clients, like I was on the phone with that woman. Actually, I was on a Zoom call with her so she could see my face.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I was, she was considering hiring me to represent her in her divorce case. And I was getting the facts from her, and I was trying to, my strategy a lot of times is to use humor, especially when things are difficult, to kind of, crack through that heaviness. And she wasn't having any of it.
Right.
I couldn't get her to smile. And then after a while with me, it becomes a contest.
Right.
I'm going to make this person laugh. I don't care. I'm going to make them crack a smile anyway. And she ended up not. She suddenly said, well, nice talking with you.
Thanks for your time. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, like that. And she was gone. Never to be heard from again.
Yeah, it just didn't fit.
Yeah, and I don't want that case.
Right.
I don't want that case because she is here's a person that's sitting there insisting on being angry.
Right.
I insist. I must be angry today.
Right.
Because I'm getting a divorce.
Right.
And I'm trying to say to her, look, there's so much more to life. Look at the birds and the bees and the flowers, and isn't it a beautiful day?
Yeah.
No, I'm pissed off and angry.
Well, and here's what happens is if you, like I said, we all usually start there in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
To an extent.
Right.
But your goal needs to be to try to move on from that. Because if you aren't moving on from that anger and you're staying stuck in it, then you're destroying yourself. You're not helping your case. You're not helping your kids. You're not experiencing any happiness.
Right.
And I find that people who are bound and determined to stay stuck in their anger in that way are very difficult to coach.
Right.
They're very difficult to coach because
they're unteachable.
They argue with you on everything of why they can't do A, B, C, or D.
You don't know my ex.
Right.
You don't know. I mean, he's different from all the other narcissists you know.
Right. He's different from the other 873 narcissists that I've dealt with. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know the number. I'm just throwing out a number. But yeah, it's like I've seen this movie hundreds and hundreds of times. I've lived my own version of it. Like, that's letting them win.
Right.
If they've destroyed you to the point where you are a bitter, angry person.
Who's willing to run across the country in a wedding dress?
That was the last episode you talked about that in. You can't carry your stories over.
Well, maybe they're listening again this week.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah.
But
well, they must be
if they understand the joke.
No, if they're actually hearing my voice.
Well, that's true.
Because that doesn't guarantee that they heard the last time.
Week. Right. Depends on when they found us, right? So if you want to know about the wedding dress and you don't know the story about the wedding dress, go back to the last episode and listen to it. But anyway.
It's there on Spotify and
Stitcher and iTunes and Anyway. He thinks he's funny. This is what I live with.
Yes.
But what happens is that person keeps you stuck in that bitter, angry state, and they've won.
Right.
If they can keep you there and keep you from being happy and living your life, what's the comment? The best revenge is living well.
Right. And your judge is sitting there too, thinking, I couldn't live with this person either.
Right.
Because they're bitter and angry.
Right. They're angry all the time.
Right.
Right. So no wonder this other person thinks they're a pain in the butt. So do I.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it hurts your credibility in court.
Right.
I mean, we've had this, particularly in domestic violence cases where we had a client where Thomas represented the husband, and the wife's filing was really kind of frivolous in our opinion. I mean, they weren't even living together at that point, and she was, complaining about, things he was saying and whatever. And it was just kind of stuff that you could really ignore. It wasn't really that big a deal. But the judge made an interesting comment at the end of it because he commented on the client's demeanor and his presentation and how he came across angry to the judge.
Right.
And so that led the judge to find for the wife in issuing a domestic violence restraining order. And that was one of the things he considered. So it's interesting because it wasn't about, what questions Thomas asked or what evidence he presented, and I'm not saying that it didn't have any impact. I mean, obviously, Thomas did his very best for the client and all that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is, despite...
Are you trying to smooth over the fact that I lost the case?
No, but what I'm trying to say is, despite the fact that you
despite my withering cross-examination.
Despite the fact that you presented the evidence and did everything you needed to do, that wasn't what swayed the decision.
Right.
What swayed the decision was the client's behavior on the witness stand.
I see the point you're trying to make.
Yeah. So it's because people get in this, especially when we're angry, it's like, you said you had this thought when you got a divorce. It's like, I'm going to go find the biggest, baddest attorney I can find to go crush her head,
Right. I remember I was at the beach a few weeks ago, and my son did something really selfish that caused me to not get home when I wanted to be home.
When your wife wanted you home.
Right. And
you knew you were going to be in trouble.
and so I yelled at my kid in front of a bunch of people, and some guy said, "Dude, you gotta chill out." And I turned to him and I told him to, in rather salty language, to mind his own business. And he, I must have really looked scary because, and the thing is, I would never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I was furious. And his attempt to intervene between me and my son kind of poured a little gasoline on the fire.
Right.
And so that, you have to be careful with angry people.
Right. Right. And well, same thing with the airplane. I think a different person that would have happened to may have been reactive to her and said something to her and created more conflict and whatever. But it was almost like she wanted to continue, to pour out her anger in an attempt to goad you into reacting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Is what it really seemed that way. Because there were there was 2 or 3 comments and, and then the staring the whole time. And it's like you're sitting there and you're watching something, like you're watching the movie on the plane or whatever you're doing. And all of a sudden you have this feeling like somebody's looking at you. You know how you get that feeling like somebody's
it's like out of the corner of your eye.
Out of the corner, and you try not to look at her, right? She's already angry, so you try to roll your eyes that direction.
It's like, I'm looking at you. I see you.
Oh my goodness, it was so crazy. I've never had anybody do that. It was just really, really, really odd. But
right. Here, let me leave. Here's a thought that
Okay.
that we should leave them with.
Okay.
The Bible says that a gentle answer turneth away wrath. And what that means is, a lot of times, when I'm out surfing, occasionally stuff happens. Occasionally I do something thoughtless. I want that wave so bad that out of a selfish motive, I drop in on it even though somebody else was on it already. And then we paddle back out, and that person proceeds to unload on me. And this has happened to me out in the water. And whenever that happens to me, I do something unexpected. They don't usually expect it anyway. I go, wow, I didn't realize that I'd hindered you. Look, I'm really sorry that I did that. And it's like it changes it reverses the polarity on the magnet. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think when people are coming at you angry like that, especially in a divorce situation, what they really are trying to do is almost push you into a reaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the manipulation a lot of times is about. Is they don't always use anger. Sometimes they use other things, but if they can come at you in a way that gets you to either, react in a way that you shouldn't, or it bullies you, or it, causes you to be afraid so that you don't say or do certain things or whatever. I mean, and so you have to not base your reactions or your responses on their anger.
Right.
But you have to base your responses on, how do I want to, who am I? How do I want to be
Right.
in this situation? And I think on the airplane in particular, that was a helpful perspective.
Apparently I wanted to be a smart aleck.
Apparently you did. But for me, it's just like, okay, what do I want to have happen? It's like, okay, I just want to get off this plane and go see my family and not have any incident and not have any sort of, I don't know, is she going to try to sue us or try to, I don't know, people do crazy things. I just want off here with no further incidences and her not being able to accuse us of anything.
Yes. Right.
And that was the goal. So, and that's really what you want to do in your divorce is don't let the other person's anger, cause you to react and do things that then is going to make you look bad to the court or, hurt your child or whatever. You've got to check.
You got to disarm them. You got to disarm them with kindness.
Right. Right. And if you're the person with the pointless anger, then I say, find a therapist, find a coach.
Get some therapy around that.
Try to get.
I've got a suggestion for that.
Try to learn how to let go of that, because that anger, and really where the anger comes in is kind of part of what we talked about, I think, a couple episodes ago. But it's your anger comes when you're focused on that other person and how they've harmed you. Like if our focus during the flight had been on her and what she was doing, I probably would have been angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried to not focus on her. I tried to watch a movie, do something else, read my book, whatever, take my focus off her so that I'm doing my life the way I want to do it and not in reaction to what she's doing. So if you can not be focused on the other person so much, that will focus on your own life and your kids and all that. That will help to dissipate that anger.
There you go.
What was your other suggestion?
Try to get in touch with the hurt that's behind the anger. Yeah. Every time you're angry, it's because somebody hurt you.
Yes.
So if you can go beneath how mad you are and find out how you hurt somebody, we can solve that problem.
Right.
That's, I hurt you, I took off on your wave, look, I'm sorry. I'll let you have the next one. We can handle that problem, but screw you. What do you do with that? How do you handle that?
Right.
Sorry, now she's going to be mad at me. I knocked her phone on the floor.
That's okay. We'll get it later.
Now, there we go.
But
I'm sorry, Tammy.
It's okay. But even if that other person won't apologize or won't whatever, there are things that you can do to help you, deal with that anger so that you're not,
Right.
because it is rooted in hurt. And so the root of it comes from from that pain, and healing that pain and moving through it is the way to resolve the anger, And
Right.
so, like, for me, my if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, you know that I lost my mother about 8 years ago, very suddenly due to a heart attack. And that her birthday is at the end of March, and every year that's a problem for me. And I've had years where it's the entire month. I've had years where it's only a couple days. This year it seemed to be for about a week or so, and I get very snappy and very short with Thomas, and he's like, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" And then it suddenly dawns on me, oh, it's almost my mom's birthday. And it's like this, I can't, the only way I knew how to describe it to him is like, "I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be harsh towards you. It's just that I can't, if I soften up, I will fall apart because I'm dealing with the grief. So the only way that I can find the strength to be able to deal with the grief is to not let the soft side of my emotions come through." And I think that, that's obviously a protection mechanism. And so I think that that's what we do a lot of times in divorce too, is we're so hurt and this has been so difficult. But if you can find anger towards that person.
You have a soft side.
That's so not nice. That is so not nice. But if you can, tap into your anger, it helps you to, toughen up. And I can remember my mom saying to me during the divorce, every time you start feeling soft, like you want to go back to him, you think of all the rotten things he did. Like you make a list and because my ex-husband had 3 affairs. So it was like, my mom's like, "You're done. Like this, you've given chance after chance after chance. You have to stand up for yourself at some point." So, and again, you don't want to live there. You don't want to hold on to that. But that anger was useful to me for a time. But you eventually have to move through it, or else,
Doesn't that make you mad when the dogs start barking?
It's made all the dogs mad for sure. So
We live in a canine-filled environment.
Yes, well, we have a house full today because my children are here visiting. So all the
Miss
animals
Kayla is still asleep.
end up here in one house.
She's she's warm under her blanket. She's
Yes.
not getting up to
And
you.
she doesn't care if anybody's barking because she's old. So she doesn't even go to see what it is. She's like, whatever. I don't even know if she can hear the barking. So anyway, that'll do it for us. Thank you for joining us. We hope this was a helpful discussion on anger. If you need help, please get therapy, coaching, learn how to deal with the other person's anger. There are definitely tools and techniques that will help with that. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you get notified as new videos come out. If you're listening to us on the podcast, also don't forget to review the episode and subscribe so that you are notified when new episodes are released each week. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.